Have you ever felt like you're caught in this subtle kind of tug of war where unseen currents just nudge your thoughts, your actions, shaping things in ways you don't even really perceive? Well, today we're plunging right into that fascinating terrain. Our mission on this deep dive. It's to pull out the most crucial insights from a really thought-provoking book, The Magic of Applying Memetics, Marketing, Masterminding, and Cybernetic Theory. It's an exploration that promises to take us, way beyond the surface of just everyday communication, revealing how ideas, beliefs, even whole cultures evolve and spread.
And this isn't just theory, right? This work really challenges our basic assumptions about, well, individual agency. It offers a kind of roadmap, you could say, to understanding what the authors call the cyber-noosphere.
The cyber-noosphere.
Yeah, essentially the global nine, the sphere of human thought, but now supercharged and all interconnected by, digital networks. So we're going to define some pretty potent terms today, like memetics, magic, mastermind groups, egregores, cybernetics, and then, importantly, we'll look at their practical applications, how they're used in shaping reality.
Yeah.
Everything from marketing right through to personal empowerment.
And one thing that really jumped out at me right away is the book's dedication. It's to you, the pirates, and it's even under Creative Commons. It kind of hints at this rebellious, maybe open source spirit, doesn't it?
It really does.
They set up their core idea with this quote from Philip K. Dick. He said, "The logos, like that deep principle, the living word, would be living information, capable of replicating information, but as information."
That's a powerful starting point, thinking of ideas not just as static things, but as living, replicating.
Exactly. Living entities in a way.
Okay, so if ideas themselves can be alive, the authors then talk about magic. Now, when they say magic, are we talking, wands and spells, or is it something different? Definitely not wands. No, the book uses Taylor Elwood's definition, magic, as making the improbable possible. So in this context, it's about taking these powerful cultural forces all around us, the ones we were just talking about, and intentionally using them to shape reality.
Intentionally using them.
Yeah, and recognizing that for magic, or maybe influence, to stay relevant, it has to evolve with technology.
Yeah.
Using those tools in ways most people just wouldn't consider.
That's a completely different frame. So if magic is about bending reality with cultural forces, what exactly are those forces? How do we even analyze them?
Well, that leads us straight into memetics. The authors define it basically as the study of cultural evolution.
Okay, memes. I think most people hear memes and think funny cat pictures online, right?
Right, and that's part of it, but this goes much deeper. The real insight is that memes, in this sense, are fundamental units of cultural information. And crucially, they incline the host organism to actions that further the meme's survival.
Incline the host, so they push us.
In a way, yeah. They spread through communication, obviously, but also through performance, watching what others do. The authors have this great metaphor. They say, think of this book as a capsid for a virus or casing for a plant seed.
Like a delivery mechanism.
Exactly. And like a virus, memes need communication between potential hosts and a way to interact with the host organism's motivational system. That's how they replicate, how they stick. It shows memes aren't just about sharing stuff online. They're fundamental drivers of how we act together, what we believe collectively. They operate way beyond viral trends, even shaping, geopolitical narratives through things the book calls psychological operations, archetypal resonance, and the growth of internet piracy. Really big stuff.
Wow, so it's not just that ideas spread, but they actively nudge us, push us towards actions that help them survive, almost like they have their own agenda.
That's a good way to put it.
And when these individual memes interact, do they sometimes combine into something bigger than just a collection of ideas?
Oh, absolutely. The authors talk about how memes can form these more complex structures. They build on familiar ideas, like Napoleon Hill's mastermind groups.
Right, I know that one. People getting together to achieve goals.
Yeah, but they take it further to this much more potent idea of egregores.
Egregores. Okay, that sounds heavier.
It is, kind of. An egregore, they define it as like a hive mind, the watcher of the group. It's an entity that emerges from complex systems. And what's really fascinating is it can transmit memes across networks, and it doesn't need any physical presence.
Like a ghost in the machine.
Sort of. Think about religious egregores, or institutions like governments, maybe big corporations maintaining their brand image. Those are all kinds of egregores. The book gives a really compelling example, the Joker.
From Batman.
Yeah. He lives in Gotham, sure, but also in the comics, the films, and really in the collective mind of everyone who knows him and his actions. They're constrained by his past. If a writer has him do something totally out of character, other writers, other artists, they'll probably just ignore that deviation later on. The egregore self-corrects in a way.
That's incredible. These abstract things having their own life, their own history that limits them. So if ideas can group together into these powerful entities, these egregores, how do these huge interconnected systems of influence actually work? How do they keep going?
Ah, well, that's where the big picture concept of cybernetics comes in. It provides the framework.
Cybernetics, like robots and computers.
It relates to that, but it's broader.
Mm.
In this context, cybernetics deals with systems that embody goals and networks which transmit memes. And this is the critical point. No one part of any cybernetic system can control the whole of the system, nor can it fully control itself.
Okay, hang on. No part can control the whole, or even itself fully.
Exactly. It introduces this idea of constrained agency. Our actions, even the actions of these big egregores, they're always influenced by the networks, the circuits they're part of. We're all, in a sense, just nodes in this massive interconnected web.
So what does this mean for you listening? It means really understanding the subtle ways your own mind is being influenced, often without you even consciously knowing it. It's kind of like being a character in a story that you didn't realize was being written around you. It's, yeah, a bit humbling, isn't it? Thinking about how much of our free will might be shaped by these larger systems.
It really is. And the authors point out that memes mostly work on our unconscious, emotionally entangled decision-making processes below the radar. They highlight this simple psychological trick, the butt trick, you see in advertising all the time.
It's a butt trick.
Yeah, a marketer raises a weak objection to their own product or message. Like, some people worry about the cost, but when you consider the long-term value, they answer their own weak objection with the message they want you to get. And this framing, it makes it more likely that people will accept the message without reflection.
It sort of pre-answers your own doubt.
Exactly. It bypasses future objections and lets the marketer control the whole debate, framing it in terms that favor them. It's subtle, but really effective manipulation of how we think.
And it's not just ads, is it? The very language we use shapes how we see things.
Absolutely. The book mentions Robert Anton Wilson's reality tunnels.
Yeah, the idea that we each live in our own subjective reality.
Right. And they also talk about the spell of noun language, this idea that using nouns for everything makes things seem solid, static, fixed. It convinces us that change is difficult when actually everything is dynamic, a process.
Like Kenneth Burke's terministic screen you mentioned.
Yeah.
A language filter.
Precisely. A filter that shapes what we notice, what we value, and even what we can perceive. It dictates what gets through and what doesn't.
Wow, and that gets even more powerful with things like video, right? Post-linguistic communication.
Oh, definitely. Unlike just words, video can smash together action and meaning visually. This leads to what the authors call propaganda of the deed. Think about it. In our modern media world, some dramatic action happens, gets filmed, then it's edited. Maybe music is added, shown over and over.
Juxtaposed with emotional cues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that amplifies its emotional impact way beyond the people who are actually there. A small event can suddenly have this huge, intense emotional resonance across society because it's been engineered that way.
So if media can shape our emotions like that with propaganda of the deed, how do these forces actually reprogram our behavior more deeply? Which brings us to this concept they call Phagic repurposing. Sounds kind of biological.
It really does sound like a virus, injecting its code to change a cell, doesn't it? And in memetics, Phagic repurposing is basically that. Altering behavior by imparting coded information tailored to an existing meme.
So you're not creating something totally new.
No, you're hijacking something that's already there. You subtly redirect existing patterns, maybe preferences or beliefs, towards a new goal. You leverage the existing structure, but give it a new function.
And stress. Stress plays a big part in making these changes stick, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The authors state it clearly. Things that place one under stress have survival significance to older physiological systems. So the experiences that are paired with stress are more memorable. Bonds formed in the face of stress are more intense.
Okay. That explains why, say, groups that go through intense challenges together bond so strongly.
Exactly. They use the example of World of Warcraft players, cooperating under pressure, forming much tighter bonds than people in a more relaxed environment like, say, Second Life back in the day. The shared stress literally wires them together.
That also leads to a pretty deep idea about society itself. The book suggests that things like ideology and hegemony, dominant ways of thinking, they don't need some big conspiracy like Marx thought.
Yeah.
They argue it arises naturally from the evolutionary behavior of memes endeavoring after their own survival. But doesn't that sound a bit fatalistic, like we have no real say?
It's less about conspiracy, more about emergence, how memes evolve naturally. This view suggests humanity was, in a way, captured long ago by the meme of civilization, leading to our own domestication.
Domestication, like animals.
Kind of. They use this vivid metaphor, herders in the herd. Society, the herders, set schedules, determines where we should be and when. They care about the herd and clusters, not so much the individuals, as long as everyone stays within predictable patterns. And the really stark observation they make is domesticated animals are the most predictable of all.
Oof. That's, yeah, powerful and a bit unsettling.
It doesn't totally erase agency, but it definitely puts it in context. We operate within these powerful currents.
So in this complex world where memes are shaping us, who actually has the advantage? Who wins?
Well, the book introduces the concept of requisite variety. Basically, it says the component with the most options available are at a distinct advantage in an interaction.
More options means more power.
Essentially, yes. They give examples. Two guys competing for a woman's attention. The one with more conversational angles, more ways to connect, has the edge. Or think of a job interview. The person who can skillfully reframe their past experiences to answer any question effectively shows more variety, more adaptability.
So flexibility, creativity, that's the
core insight. Adaptability is how you navigate and influence these complex systems successfully.
Okay, let's flip this. If we are constantly being influenced, shaped by these invisible currents, how do we fight back? How do we become the authors of our own stories? How do we influence our own lives, maybe even our own networks?
Right, and the core idea here is actually incredibly empowering. The book says the way to freedom is to use the tools of control on ourselves.
Use the tools on ourselves, like self-surveillance.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
Actively spying on our own actions, recording our own activities, look at our own patterns, and create our own predictions. It's about developing this profound self-awareness, understanding the memes running us, understanding our own internal cybernetic loops.
And a big part of that self-engineering is something they call input-output balancing. It sounds technical.
A little, but the idea is simple and powerful. It's about making a shift, moving from being just a passive media consumer to an active media producer.
Stop just taking stuff in, start creating.
Exactly. The book claims there's an immediate power shift, which occurs when you make that change. Create your own stuff, drawings, music, writing, whatever, and then, crucially, feed it back to yourself as input. Look at what you made. Analyze it.
So how do you actually do that?
They suggest, be selective of your input. Choose what you consume carefully. Then, capture your output. Save what you create. Feed it back to yourself. Review it. Analyze it. And continue this process until you are comfortable with sharing your output with a larger audience.
Yeah.
They also stress that learning media criticism is a really useful skill here. It helps you analyze external messages and your own creations much more effectively. You get better at seeing the patterns, the influence.
This sounds almost like building your own internal mastermind group, just with yourself. Do they connect it back to actual mastermind groups?
They do, yeah. They describe mastermind groups as essentially laboratories for memetic construction.
Laboratories.
Yeah, spaces where you can iteratively produce ideas, select the good ones, get feedback. It's where ideas gain vitality and appeal, becoming stronger, more effective. It's like conscious collaborative meme engineering.
Okay. And building on that, the book talks about programming your preconscious mind.
No.
That sounds really powerful, maybe even a bit spooky.
It is powerful. It involves setting precise goals, which it interprets literally. Your deeper mind isn't great with nuance, apparently. You need to regularly upgrade these goals and understand that memes, once they're in there, they stick around. They suggest techniques like daily visualization that revolves around having the goal as opposed to needing the goal to trigger the results you want.
So you visualize already being there, not just wanting it.
Precisely. You're basically implanting specific memetic code into your deeper mind, telling it what future state to aim for.
And this active creation thing, it extends to writing too, doesn't it? They talk about narrative magic.
Yes, they flat out state. Writing is the science and art of causing change in the reader to occur in conformity with the will of the author and editor.
Whoa. Causing change in the reader according to your will?
Pretty direct, right?
Yeah.
And they see editing not just as fixing grammar, but as the real sorcery that gives the writing form and meaning. It's how you shape the message's impact with precision.
That makes sense, like sharpening the point of the spear.
Exactly. And I offer a really practical exercise related to this. They suggest you write out a story, or at least a description, of the idealized version of your life.
Your perfect self, on paper.
Right. And then, by creating a storyline around this character, you begin building a model in your mind of how you might become that character. It's a concrete way to start actively engineering the future you and the stories that guide you there.
Okay, now for something maybe a bit out there, but really vivid, the traffic dragon from the appendix.
Ah, yes, the traffic dragon.
They suggest that something as mundane as city traffic actually has an emergent intelligence, that you can learn to read the mood of traffic, even talk to it by like timing pedestrian lights or changing your driving. It sounds kind of wild.
That does sound wild on the surface, yeah. But the real insight isn't literally talking to cars.
Okay, good.
It's using traffic as a micro example. It shows how any complex system, a city, a market, a society, has its own emergent logic, and that we can learn to perceive and even subtly influence these dynamics. The principle is, the more you watch traffic, the more you will see intelligent acts of sortilege. These patterns emerge that seem almost meaningful, like reading signs.
Like finding patterns in the chaos.
Exactly. The point of the exercise isn't magic traffic control. It's to build up an adequate model of traffic behavior in your brain. It trains you to see and interact with complex systems on a deeper, more intuitive level. Makes the abstract feel tangible.
And for any artists or creators listening, there's practical advice too, right? It's not just about talent.
But definitely not just talent. Success, they argue, is often due to public awareness within the right networks, the networks that are already enabled to support an artist.
So finding your niche, your supportive network.
Precisely. It directly applies these ideas of networks and memes to actually building a creative career. Your art needs the right soil to grow, the right network to receive it.
So, okay, we've gone on quite a journey here. From understanding these hidden, subtle meme forces shaping everything to actively trying to shape our own memetic landscape, we've learned that not everything is equally interconnected, which is interesting, and that real change often starts small with the tools you have right now, especially self-awareness.
Yeah, and I think the key takeaway is this. By understanding how memes, egregores, these cybernetic systems all connect and interact, you shift your role. You're no longer just a passive meme bearer swept along. You become more of a memetic engineer. You gain increased agency, more ability to shape your own reality and your influence within the networks you care about. It's about learning to consciously steer rather than just drift.
Right. This whole deep dive really hammers home that our world isn't static. It's this dynamic process, always in motion, always changing, whether we pay attention or not. So the real question isn't if change will happen, but maybe. To what degree will you be its author?
And that brings us back to that William Gibson quote, doesn't it? The future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. If that's true, it leaves you with a pretty important question to ponder. What kind of future will you choose to actively engineer with these memetic tools you now know about? And maybe just as importantly, what stories will you choose to tell yourself and tell the world to help make that future happen?